Hello, good evening. Hope everybody's doing well. This is my second video of the day, and my previous video was drawing, so go check that out if you got some time and just kind of want maybe put it on fast forward so you can kind of see my process and everything. I think it ended up being pretty good. So in my previous video that I did was related to Stars Without Number. We talked about Session 0. And I also, in another video, spoke about the universe as far as my Stars Without Number universe. So be sure to check that out. Anyhow, after my Session 0, where the players were able to go through this essentially training course to it's almost like a hell week to sort out which of their characters are going to end up going on these missions. They ended up with Drew Rigner for my friend Travis, Earl Booker for my cousin Chuck, Justin Moses for my friend Justin, Roldy Jenkins for my friend Perry. So these guys were selected as sort of a special forces strike team, maybe, or exploratory team. That's better. Maybe a reconnaissance team would be a better description. To go forth and explore from the planet Imhotep. So basically how it works is that on Imhotep, the High Queen, Tallulah Gammon, she has assembled this team to take the first built frigate that the planet Imhotep has been able to field since the Scream happened. And the Scream at this time is well over 1,000 years ago. So basically what's happened is that our players, their planet, they have been completely living alone in the universe since the Scream. They've not been able to communicate with the home planets. They've not been able to communicate with any of their neighboring sectors, any of their neighboring systems. They've completely lost all of this all communication. Fortunately, thanks to some foresight, the Gammon dynasty, as they have ruled for quite a while now, began setting up psionic universities a couple generations ago, if I recall correctly. And since they've been setting that up, they've been developing the means to try and once more drill through space, right, with these spike drives. So that's kind of where we're at right now. High Queen Tallulah Gammon has built her first frigate. It seems as if it is functionable in space, and so she is assembling a team to send on their first mission, and they will be traveling to the neighboring system of New Rhea. So New Rhea is a unique planet. New Rhea actually does not have does not have an atmosphere capable of sustaining human life. But it actually pre-Scream, it actually was a very, very large and prosperous world. A lot of that had to do with the fact that it was a very beautiful planet, and it was really high in carbon dioxide, but really low in oxygen. So the people that visited or lived there had to basically wear respirators, or within about 10 or 15 minutes they would basically pass out. So it's like a low-level respirator. It's almost close to our own, but not quite as far as the oxygen goes, and the oxygen content and the atmospheric content. It's a very obviously there's lots of huge trees on this planet. It's a very nature centered planet, and that was part of the allure of New Rhea. But anyhow, so let's get into it. So basically, the players are assigned to the IRN Stalwart. That is the name of the frigate that they are setting forth on from Imhotep. So our IRN stands for the Imhotepian Royal Navy. So they've been assigned to this frigate, and they are basically a strike team. Their designation is Strike Team Alpha. There's also Strike Team Beta as well. Sorry, Bravo, Beta, Strike Team Bravo. Yeah, so of the characters that are being played by the players, we have, as I mentioned, Drew Rigner. He is our team leader at this time, as well as he is the psionic, the main psionic for the ship. He is the lead psionic. Next, we have Earl Booker. Earl is basically a weaker psionic, but also is a very capable warrior. So he's a warrior psionic mix. These guys are all level 1, by the way. Justin Moses, he's the pilot for the frigate. He has the best piloting skills. He is considered an expert. And lastly, we have Rhodey Jenkins, who is probably one of the strongest warriors on the ship. These are the characters that constitute Strike Team Alpha. And yeah, so just a brief sort of introduction as well for the key NPCs that are on the ship. For the captain, we have just Joshua Mason, Captain Joshua Mason, head navigator Becca Wiley, head of logistics Yakel Cooper, maintenance supervisor Mothy Woodyaz. The lead doctor on the ship is Jane Sones. Head chef is Arimo Awatson. And another key NPC that is maybe not as high on as far as the ranking goes, but is definitely very important for the players at least, is Corporal Deborah Alters. Her call sign is Hyphen, so she is their mission controller. So she is sort of their eyes and ears, makes the calls back and forth between the captain, all that good stuff. So basically the players, their story begins up in the upper atmosphere of the Emotepian planet. There's a space station that's orbiting the planet, and attached to the space station is the IRN Stalwart. It is actually kind of built more as almost as a transport as opposed to a combat ship. It does have some very rudimentary defenses on it, but it's primarily meant for a scouting and also for a logistics ship. So the players and the NPCs, they board the IRN Stalwart. The captain orders them to disembark from the space station, and they make their path to the outer reaches of the system. It doesn't take too long because this frigate is pretty fast, and yeah, once they're at a good jump distance, they have to get a sufficient distance away from the sun to be able. I say sun, it'd be the star in their system. They have to get a sufficient distance away before they can make the drill. And as they get that distance, the captain orders the drill to occur. So what that means, the way that I play it out, the way that in my game that the players make a jump, is they first have to make a psionic check, and then they make a piloting check. And so based off those rolls, I can kind of determine how well this first one goes. So considering that there hadn't been a drill attempt, there hadn't been a spike drive drill attempt in well over 1,000 years, the DC for this was going to be extremely high. And the players didn't know this. So actually, one of the first things that I had organized for their first session was an event that would happen once they fail their drill attempt, because I assumed it would happen. But oddly enough, Drew Rigner, the psionic that's on the ship, he rolled natural double sixes on the skill check, And for me, natural double sixes is a critical success, just like a D20 nat 20 would be. So a double six is even less likely than a nat 20. So the very first skill check of the game, Drew rolls a double sixes and gets a critical success on his psionic read of this drill attempt into space, into the meta dimension. And so yeah, basically Drew is able to easily reach out into the metadimensional space and is able to read the waves and he can see the pathway to New Rhea despite all of the I guess incredible rarity that this should happen. Drew's able to pull it off, and he relays the pathway and the dimensions to Justin Moses, and then Justin Moses begins to make the jump. And so then he rolls a piloting check, and Justin Moses rolls really well. So this first spike drive that they perform, it works. It works perfect. They arrive at the system of New Rhea. They they haven't been destroyed by some metadimensional storm or anything like that. They arrived there. Yeah, I was actually extremely shocked. So they were pretty happy. They were pretty excited. Yeah, so they approach the planet of New Rhea, and as they approach, they are hailing the planet and sending messages and communications, things like this. There are quite a few orbiting space stations. However, because of 1,000 years of time, most of the space stations have actually been hit by flying chunks of debris and maybe asteroids, things like this. So there's really only one space station that's orbiting the planet that looks like it's in relatively good shape. The captain orders the communications officer to try and hail the planet. There is no response. They try and hail the surrounding satellites, the surrounding space stations, still no response. It's not looking good right now for the inhabitants of New Rhea. So basically at this time I gave the players two different options. They could try and secure the space station that's orbiting the planet, or they could just go ahead and do a hot drop down to the planet. So sensors on the on the frigate basically are showing that there is no significant life forms that would be expected in any of the major cities. It seems as if there is life on the planet, but they can't really tell if they don't. It's not sufficient enough to say, okay, yes, this is definitely a city, right? There's not enough information on the scan to really be able to show that. So anyhow, I guess fearing the idea of jumping into an alien world, the players opt for their strike team being assigned to take the space station. So basically, they fly over. They take a small shuttle. The four of them are able to fit easily in the shuttle. They take a trip over to the space station. They're able to land. They have to obviously wear a full spacesuit for this. In my game, I allow for grav boots. And basically, whenever they enable a grav boot, it creates a gravity field with the surface that they're standing on. It's not really it's not really as strong as gravity is as we think about it. It's more like they have to be very careful about how they run. They can't really run, honestly. It's really more of like a weird shuffle that they have to do. So there's a few different things. I kind of describe it to the players that this is they can't move as quickly. It's definitely very an arduous task to try and use these grav boots, but it's better than just kind of floating around all willy-nilly, right? So anyhow, they come to the space station and they are able to successfully dock, but the space station does not dock for them. It appears that there is no power on the space station. As the players were flying in, they basically did a circle around the space station, and they notice that it looks like there is 3 primary wings, or was 3 primary wings. First is the apartment wing, which appears to be kind of locked off at the ends, at the end of it, as if something may have hit it. Next, out in the primary wing is the administrative wing, and then the other wing is the kitchens and the dining area. Now, they don't know this already, but I'll go ahead and kind of explain that. So they, excuse me, they are able to dock to the station. As I said, though, it did not go well because there was no power. So, one second. Checking my notes here. So, the players decide to go ahead and force their way onto the ship, and so they were able to forcefully dock. And luckily, their shuttle came prepared for that. There was a certain number of assumptions that were made along the way, but the doors open into the space station. They have to force their way into the door on the space station side, and then whenever they hit the open button, there is no power. So Roldy Jenkins, he's able to kind of force his way through the primary airlock into the main station, and yeah, the players then proceed to kind of explore. So the first thing they decide to do is they don't want anything to do with the apartment wing for some reason, because this is they looked down through there and they saw that this was the side that had been busted apart, so they didn't want to take any chances on potentially falling out of the opening into space. So they proceeded to the administrative area, the administrative wing, or the command center wing, and yeah, there's a certain number of things that they find along the way. There's red spores that are kind of floating around in the room, and they kind of trace the spores over to this kind of red mold that they're finding on. It's not really mold; it's more like moss. It's a very, very small moss, almost like mold, that they find growing along the walls of the command center. So they kind of stay clear of that for the first little bit. They do some exploring, and they find not a player. They find a skeleton that is in a room off to the side, off to the left. The skeleton, they can see black stains on the wall, and there's a head wound. This skeleton has a severe head wound, and floating around within the room is a revolver. And so the players are kind of able to piece together that this guy, whose name was Jeff Kramer, they end up finding some notes that were written by this guy. Yeah, he's basically the lead scientist that's on this space station. And as they're finding more and more information, they're kind of finding that this is definitely it's more like a research facility as well as a command center. Sorry, not a command center, a communications hub for the planet of New Rhea. And so it looks as if what they were doing was they were trying to research different. They're trying to research different plants that can live in space. And so that kind of leads the players to believe that maybe that red moss stuff isn't that dangerous. So they actually kind of take some of the vials, and they actually put some of the red moss in some of the vials, and decide that they're going to take that back to the ship for further study. While they're in there, Justin Moses decides that he wants to try and get power back on for the space station, and so he asked me if they can see if there's enough solar panels to be able to power the station, and I tell him that there are. That something must have happened to turn the power off. So the players, they do some exploring, and yeah, in the closet within the room where they found Jeff Kramer, they find a circuit board. Sorry, not a circuit board, an electrical panel, and sure enough, one of the breakers is tripped. So they're able to, with some exploration there, and my players are they like to explore. They're really nosy. They like to go through all the details, right? They like to ask questions like, well, can we turn on the power? So I really like that about them. So they get the power back on, and excuse me, and once they get the power back on, they step back into the command center, and they see that some of the computers are starting to boot up. And so Justin Moses kind of kicks into gear and starts trying to do some figuring on what may have happened, and and he's able to hack. He's actually able to hack into the main computer, and he's able to get logs and stuff of things that happened after the scream on New Rhea. And I'm going to stop for now with that, and we'll pick up in the next video with what exactly may have happened on the planet of New Rhea whenever after the scream. Yeah, if you've stuck around this long, I'm guessing that you like this to some degree. So if you don't mind, give it a like, maybe hit subscribe, and I hope you guys did enjoy. And if you've got if you've got any ideas or questions for my campaign, please feel free to message me. I love getting any kind of feedback. Appreciate you guys. Have a good week. Have a good day. Stay safe out there. See you next time.